Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess. I'm overcaffeinated, and I want to talk about the most niche books that I have ever read. I'm going to be talking about the 10 most niche books that I have read, which means that they have the least number of Goodreads ratings. I am excluding manga because those tend to be a lot more niche with like a couple hundred ratings, but I also haven't read that many of them. So there's no manga on this list, and also I only own 3 of these as physical copies. The rest will be photos on the screen because I either read them digitally or I don't own them anymore. Most of the books on this list I did like and enjoy, but there's a couple on here that weren't a particular hit for me, but they might be for you, so I'm going to do my best to explain them. Also, some of them, it has been a really long time since I read them. And for me, a really long time is like maybe a few months to a year or more because my brain is made of Swiss cheese and I can't remember anything. Thanks ADHD. So bear with me. For all of these, I'm going to read the synopsis on the back of the book to give you a clear idea of what it's about, and then I'll share my thoughts on it. So let's get into it with the least niche book on this list, which is Bitterthorn by Kat Dunn with 6,233 ratings. By the way, I'm looking at a whiteboard. Do you want to see my whiteboard? Check this bad boy out. That's my whiteboard. Bitterthorn is a gothic fantasy romance, and it is sapphic. Let me read you the back. Once a generation, the witch claims a companion from the town of Bloomwald, never to be seen again. Now that time is drawing near once more. Mina, daughter of the Duke, has lost all hope of future in Bloomwald, so when the witch appears, Mina offers herself up, though she has no idea what fate awaits her. Stranded with her darkly alluring captor, the mystery of what happened to the previous companions draws Mina into the heart of a terrifying secret. Also, look at the cute little metal tabs that I put on the front and the back. It didn't come like this. I got it from the UK because it was one of the ones that was harder to find in print in the US. And the corners were all dented up when it got here, so I put these little things on and I love them. Anyway, this one is a really fun read because both Mina and the witch are very like sulky, depressed, sad girls who just kind of like latch onto each other, but the witch is like such a bitch in the beginning that you're not even really liking her, but like you kind of start to see the soft side of her and the more vulnerable parts of her as the story continues, and I really did like their romance, but I really enjoyed this one. It is a standalone, which is nice. It has such a great gothic moody atmosphere because it takes place in this like decrepit, crumbling manor out in the wilderness, and it's a stone castle with moss and vines covering all of it. There are gardens that are overgrown with thorns and vines. The forest outside of the castle is very daunting and full of danger, and so it does have a really great atmosphere. I think that was one of my favorite parts of this. I think I gave this one a 5-star when I read it. I really enjoyed it, and it's one of her least known works, so I recommend you try it. You may have also heard of Hungerstone by this same author. That one was much more popular of a release, and I also really fucking loved that one. I gave it a 5 as well. So Kat Dunn has definitely solidified herself as one of my favorite authors, so I recommend you give Bitterthorn a try. So now we're gonna work our way down to number 9 on the list, which is Walking Practice by Dulki Min. This has 5,813 ratings. Walking Practice is a horror sci-fi novella following an alien character who hunts, sleeps with, and then eats humans. It is wildly experimental in tone, in structure. By the way, it was written in Korean and then translated to English. There was so much detail and so much love and attention that went into the translation. I really loved the translator's note at the end, actually. Read that if you also read the book. A lot of the really experimental choices are in the format of the story. I've heard the audiobook is amazing, but I personally only read it digitally. I wish that I had a physical copy actually, and I might get one because it was such a ride. This one definitely needs to be read with your eyeballs as well as potentially with your ears because the formatting of the text, and I keep talking about the formatting, but it's so unique. There are so many choices made with the tone, with the layout of the text, with the spacing of the text, the type of tone that the character uses depending on what form it's in, whether it's in its human form for hunting and catching prey, or in its alien form when it's at rest at home. This is probably one of the most experimental books that I've read in terms of just the reading experience, but also in a lot of the topics that this book gets into, especially regarding queerness and humanness, I suppose, and also how you have to mask and shove yourself into a mold and break and bend and put yourself together in a certain way that society likes. And that was really well described through the character's eyes. And sometimes the alien speaks directly to you as the reader, and that was also really cool. It got my spine tingling every time because it really felt like they saw you. Just a warning though, this book is extremely gross. I wouldn't say it's extreme horror by any means. It's not the most viscerally disgusting thing I've ever read. Well, actually, it probably is. It's probably not the most viscerally disgusting thing that anybody has ever read, but it was for me. But I still loved it, and it made me look at meat differently for quite a while, and kind of still does, actually. So be warned about that. I think the horror aspects of this were so well done, and it really makes you analyze so much while you're reading it, and that was walking practice. So let's move on to the next most niche. Next is The Geographer's Map to Romance by India Holton. This one is technically the second book in a series, but in that way that a lot of romance series are, where it's not the same characters each time, they're just kind of connected through maybe this guy's cousin or this lady's roommate or whatever it is, you know what I mean? So you can read this as a standalone, and you can read the first one as a standalone, which is The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love. I didn't check how many ratings this has, but it's really good. It's probably not the most niche. This one just came out this year, so there are less ratings for it, but it's been out for a few months, I think. So The Geographer's Map to Romance is a romance, believe it or not, that's crazy. It's also historical, and it follows these two professors at Oxford University. They are both geography professors, but this world isn't just like our world. There's magic in this world, and so magical geography is kind of like a little bit of a different field. And so they get sent out on assignment together to go and figure out what's happening with this geographical magical anomaly and find a way to stop it or minimize the damage. But what makes it even juicier is that these two professors are married. They are estranged. They had a marriage of convenience. They were friends in university. They are still married, but things kind of got rocky from there. And so now they are just vaguely amicable coworkers, and they are not getting divorced. And so that's kind of the drama going on underneath this expedition, is that these estranged lovers are trying to figure out their feelings for each other. And does he like me? Does she like me? Am I actually in love with my husband? Just, you know, classic romance questions. This series, but especially the first one, I think are very comedic, and it's very tongue-in-cheek. It doesn't take itself too seriously. If you like romance book tropes and you like kind of playing on those tropes or making parodies of them, I think you will enjoy this series. There's always this kind of fun way of subverting but also playing into those tropes that I think is really funny. I didn't say the number of ratings, did I? It has 5,551 ratings. I did not say that. I'm doing so great right now. Professor Elodie Tarrant is an expert in magical disasters. Nothing phases her, except her own personal disaster, that is. Professor Gabriel Tarrant, the grumpy, unfriendly man she married for convenience a year ago, whom she secretly loves. Gabriel is also an expert in magical disasters, and nothing phases him either, except the walking, talking tornado that is his wife. They've been estranged since shortly after their wedding day, but that hasn't stopped him from stoically pining for her. When magic erupts in a small Welsh village, threatening catastrophe for the rest of England, Elodie and Gabriel are accidentally both assigned to the case. With the fate of the country in their hands, they must come together as a team in the face of perilous conditions like explosions, domesticated goats, and only one bed. But this is easier said than done. After all, there's no navigational guide for the geography of the heart. Edit that in. And so that is Geographer's Map to Romance. The next book on this list is The Brightness Between Us by Elliot Schrafer. This is technically a sequel to The Darkness Outside of Us, which I really enjoyed and has 30,336 reviews, but this sequel only has 5,045 reviews. I kind of think that with the way that this book is written and set up, you might be able to read it as a standalone, and I kind of wish it was a standalone because I really liked The Darkness Outside Us, and I kind of wish that it was just its own standalone novel. I feel like the first book and the second book are kind of tonally very different. So The Darkness Outside Us and The Brightness Between Us are both sci-fi. They're both YA, I believe, and they both have male-male romance. I really can't say much about The Brightness Between Us because it is a sequel. However, I will say I really enjoyed The Darkness Outside Us, and I recommend you try it if you enjoy two gays stuck in a spaceship in space and a lot of weird shit happening between a possibly murderous AI, clones, and rich boy whining. If that sounds like your jam, The Darkness Outside Us is a lot of fun. And The Brightness Between Us, even though it wasn't like my favorite, it was still an interesting experience and I did enjoy the read. Maybe look into the duology. The next most niche book is The Last Hour Between Worlds by Melissa Caruso. I only just read this one this month, so it's very fresh. This one has 4,101 Goodreads ratings. The Last Hour Between Worlds is a locked door mystery in a fantasy sci-fi kind of setting where there are multiple layers of reality called echoes, and as you go down each echo, reality gets more and more distorted. And our main character Kimbrel is attending this like New Year's Eve party situation, and the party gets a little bit rowdy as these mask-wearing monsters show up and storm the party, and then a deity shows up and stabs a guy. And then reality shifts and they go down an echo and everything just fucking spirals from there. And so that's what happens at the beginning of this book in like chapter 1 or 2. It gets into like a Groundhog Day situation where this 1 hour of the party is just being replayed over and over and over, but reality's getting more and more distorted. It's basically just a bunch of like otherworldly creatures and gods just showing up and playing 4D chess with our main character and her sapphic love interest. And overall, I had a good time with this one. I thought it was a fun time. I'm actually going to read you this synopsis because I own the book, so... Bitterthorn is spending a precious few hours away from her newborn, and she's determined to enjoy herself at the year-turning ball. But when the guests start dropping dead, Kem has no choice but to get to work. She's a member of the Guild of Hounds, after all, and she can't help picking up the scent of trouble, especially when her professional and personal nemesis, notorious cat burglar Rika Nunsuch, is also on the prowl. At the heart of the mayhem is a mysterious clock that sends the ballroom down into strange and otherworldly new layers of reality every time it chimes. As the party plunges through increasingly dangerous versions of their city, Kem will have to rely on her wits, and Rika, to unravel the mystery before catastrophe is unleashed on their world. And by the way, the clock is pretty cool. I have the Illumicrate edition, so it's got this funky mirror clock situation on the cover. It's pretty fun. And so that was The Last Hour Between Worlds. The next few books on this list, it's been longer and longer since I had read them, and so a lot of the details are fuzzy. So sorry in advance that I'm not going to remember like anybody's names. The next book on the list is Foul Days by Genevieve Demova, and this one has 3,939 ratings. Ooh, 39? Hang on, I gotta refuel. By the way, I'm channeling Allie from All I Do Is Read with the Ultra Strawberry Dreams. That's her favorite flavor, and so I figured I would give it a try, and it's really, really good. Again, I don't own this book, so I'm gonna put the photo on the side and the synopsis on the other side, and you can pause to read. So Foul Days is set in a fantasy city where in the middle of the city there is a living, literal wall. I can't remember why, but the wall is made of like dark energy or dark matter or something, and if you try to go up to the wall, it'll literally like grab you and eat you. And this wall separates the poorer, more dilapidated parts of town from the really rich, bougie parts of town. Another point of difference between the two parts of town is that the poorer side of town has magic and is capable of producing magical items and magical artifacts that the rich people really like to buy. And so there is this kind of flow of trade between the wall. There is like an official way to get through the wall, I believe, but a lot of the people from the poor side of town can't leave to go to the rich side because they don't have like a gate pass or something. And so it's pretty much something that only traders can go through the wall, or a lot of the time smugglers will go around the wall in a few ways, so to speak. And so our main character is a witch living on the poor side of town. In this world, witches are extremely powerful, and their power is tied to their shadow. If a witch loses her shadow, it basically means death. In addition to witches, there's a whole ton of folkloric monsters and creatures that terrorize the town, but only during the Foul Days, which is a period of time. I can't remember if it's every month or if it's once a year. I don't remember. It's been a while. And one of the only types of people that can hunt and track down and kill these monsters before they kill people are witches. And remember how I said that a witch's shadow is really, really important? Well, that kind of means that it's a bad thing when our main character loses her shadow in a game of cards. And she starts to literally like disappear, like her limbs are getting transparent. And so she has to try to track down the person that she lost her shadow to, and also evading this demon who's after her. And also there's a guardsman involved who I think is tracking down smugglers or something. I don't really remember that part, but there's a lot going on for our main character. She's kind of in a bad state, you know? So this one is the first in a duology or a series of some kind, and I'm not reading the rest of the series. I did just read this as a standalone. I felt kind of middling about it. There were lots of things that I did like, but there were some things I did not like. However, a lot of the folklore monsters and creatures that you see were really, really interesting, and if you want a book that's kind of like The Witcher, but less political intrigue, this might be up your alley. It's got all the monster slaying and the spell casting and sword fighting, so it was a fun time, and I think that it would work for a lot of people. So that is Foul Days. The next book on the list is The Last Gifts of the Universe by Riley August, and again, I don't own this one, so information on the side. This one has 2,886 ratings. This is a fairly short sci-fi, and I read it as an audiobook. Basically, what I remember about this one is that it's a sibling duo, I believe, who is on some sort of a space expedition. I think they're cataloging or... Oh, I remembered. They're tracking down like data caches that were left behind by previous civilizations before their destruction, and they're trying to gather information about what caused the destruction of all these previous civilizations and how to potentially stop their civilization's destruction. There's also a cat. I think the cat's name is Pumpkin, and they take the cat out on the missions as well, which is really cute. It has its own spacesuit. I think this one was cute. I think that it had some good things going on, and I liked the audiobook. I think the narrator did a good job. It wasn't like my favorite read by any means, but I would recommend it if you want like a quick, short and sweet, very sci-fi experience. Also, I believe that both the main character and the author are non-binary. I will confirm that and put it somewhere on the screen, but I think they are, which is really cool if that's the case. There's not a whole lot of non-binary rep out there. So that was Last Gifts of the Universe. The next book on this list is Needy Little Things by Chanel D'Amours. Sorry if I said the last name wrong. And that one has 2,536 ratings. I listened to the audiobook, which was really, really good. Again, it's been a long time since I read this one, so a little foggy on the details, but this one is a contemporary mystery thriller. Our main character has this special ability to detect the needy little things that people want. She literally hears it in her head if she's near somebody, so something little like chapstick or a toothpick or a hair comb. Most of the time, very mundane things. And so she has this bag that she carries around with her, this like jumbo bag full of a million different things in there that anybody could possibly need. And so if she hears somebody needing something, she finds a way to give it to them. But things take a turn one day when her and her friends are going to a music festival, and one of her friends is thinking to herself, pepper spray, pepper spray, pepper spray. And our main character obviously gives it to her, but is kind of wondering why. I mean, obviously, aside from being a woman in public, you know, that's fair. But maybe there's more to it than that. And so our main character is kind of keeping an eye on her throughout the night. But at one point they get separated and the friend goes missing. And so that initiates a missing persons case while they look for their lost friend. And I think this was a really interesting mystery. I remember things getting a little bit kind of crazy towards the end, a little bit far-fetched. Maybe not the cleanest way to wrap up the story, but I did still enjoy it. I think that, first of all, the cover is gorgeous. Second of all, the audiobook was fantastic. And third, I think that the character building was really well done. I think each of the main trio of friends was really well established and they had very deep personalities. So if you want to read a good YA mystery thriller, if you want an audiobook, put it on, give it a try. And so that was Needy Little Things. Okay, so we're down to the last two, which are the most niche on this list. We are below 2,000 ratings now. This next one is maybe a little bit extra niche because it's a Christmas romance. And that is The Elven Days of Christmas by A.K. Caggiano. Sorry if I said the name wrong. And that has 1,820 ratings. Again, I don't own it, so information on the side, feel free to pause. I won't go too much into this one because it's just a romance. It's just a holiday romance, basically. But the male love interest is an elf. And not like a Christmas North Pole Santa's helper kind of elf, but like an actual forest, Legolas, has magic powers type of elf. And so one day the female main character and male main character, they bump into each other in the woods. I think she's looking for a Christmas tree or something, I don't remember. But they bump into each other in the woods and there's a cute little meet cute. It just goes from there and it's a cute time, it's fun, it's got a little bit of like a plot, I suppose you could say. It's not super high stakes, but it was fun. It was actually the first and only Christmas romance that I've read, so I had a good time with it. It was kind of light and fluffy and fun and what I needed at the time. So maybe give it a try this holiday season if it sounds interesting to you, and that is The Elven Days of Christmas. And now I am so excited to say not only are we on the last book on this list, which is the most niche book, I actually fucking love this book, and that is A Long Time Dead by Samara Breger. This one only has 1,487 ratings. This one is a historical romance following two female vampires, so it is sapphic. Poppy, our main character, was just turned into a vampire, and when she wakes up from her transformation, she's being cared for by another woman named Roisin. And this woman is very mysterious and sulky and kind of keeps to herself. So naturally, Poppy falls head over heels for her, as you do. But she immediately becomes very interested in this strange woman who she comes to find out is also a vampire. And not only that, she was turned by the same person who turned Poppy. This book is split into three kind of distinct parts, I would say. I can't remember if it's actually split into part 1, 2, 3, but it definitely has these very clear, almost phases of life or phases of unlife, I suppose, as Poppy is transitioning and settling into her vampirism and also dealing with a whole ton of emotions. So I'll read the synopsis. It's a little long, sorry. Somewhere foggy, 1837. Poppy had always loved the night, so it wasn't too much of a bother to wake one evening in an unfamiliar home far from London, weak and confused and plagued with a terrible thirst for blood, to learn that she could no longer step out into the day. And while vampirism presented several disadvantages, it more than made up for those in its benefits. Immortality, a body that could run at speed for hours without tiring, the thrill of becoming a predator, the thing that pulls rabbits from bushes and tears through their fur and flesh with the sharp point of a white fang. And of course, Roisin, the mysterious woman who has lived for centuries, who held Poppy through her painful transformation, and who, for some reason, is now teaching her how to adjust to her new endless life. The time they spend together is as transformative to Poppy as the changes in her body, and soon she finds herself hopelessly, overwhelmingly attached. But Roisin has her own secrets and can't make any promises, not when vengeance must be served. Soon their little world explodes. Together and apart, they encounter scores of vampires, shifty pirates, conniving opera singers, ancient nobles, glamorous French women, and a found family that throws a very particular sort of party. But all around, threat looms. one woman, capable of destroying everything Poppy and Roisin hold dear. There's a lot to it, and there's a lot that takes place in this, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it was a great time. There's so much sapphic pining, and plotting, and sex, and romance, and a wonderful vampire found family who adopts Poppy into their fold, and it's really a great time. I really enjoyed this book. I actually read this as an ebook, and I loved it so much that I wanted to get a physical copy so that when I reread it, I can annotate and take notes. So this was A Long Time Dead. And so that was the 10 most niche books that I've ever read. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any niche books that you've read that you really enjoyed, let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear your recommendations. Let me know if you've read any of these. And if you made it to the end of the video and you don't know what to comment, drop a vampire emoji for Long Time Dead. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. It means a lot to me that you're here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. What was the last line that I said? I don't remember. Where did I leave that sentence? Should I just put it on the book? Stop being so fucking lazy. Probably the 4,101th was me. Oneth? No. No.